So I joined Square in 2011 when the company was about 100 people. And it was 2 years into my time at Square until I started working on Cash App. And so the experience that I had just working at Square generally was everyone was very entrepreneurial. Everyone was a self-starter. Everyone just like wanted to make this company work. And it was just a really fun environment. Like we were all young. We were all had like no obligations of any kind. We were like working 100 hours a week. We were eating all 3 meals a day in the office. And this may sound like a miserable like wage slave sort of existence, but we actually believe that we had this mission of democratizing credit card payments. I know it sounds kind of silly, but we actually believed it. And when you believe something in your core, it motivates you to work harder, work smarter. And we also were creating something that didn't previously exist. Like no one was able to take credit card payments on their phone. It's like kind of, and now it's not a big deal. Like, we bump phones, we do all these sort of things, but you have to remember this like 13 years ago. And it was like not the norm. It wasn't commonplace.
Right.
Adam, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Towards the end of my day here, I'm excited to get into the conversation.
I appreciate you jumping on. Your bio says big pizza guy. I have to ask, what's your favorite pizza?
I'm a New York slice guy. So right now, it's no longer a secret. I kept it like close to the vest for a while, but there's a place called Lucia Pizza of Soho. It's my favorite slice in New York right now. I found it like a couple of years ago. There was one in on Avenue X in Flatbush, and I knew it was amazing. They opened up one here. No one knew about it for a while. Now it's on the map, so I can talk about it. It's no longer my secret alpha.
And what do you say to those people who enjoy having pineapple on their pizza?
I'd say find God.
It's two words, two strong words. I do agree with you. And for those that enjoy their pineapple pizza, you can enjoy it. More for you. I won't have a slice. Neither will Adam. So you guys are more welcome to have all that stuff. Now, when thinking of your brand, what comes to mind right now? What are you known for right now?
I mean, me personally, I think one thing, I do a couple of these spaces and conversations from time to time. What I hear from most is that, I'm very candid. I'm very straight. I don't feel the need to speak in hyperbole, like that, we're the greatest company ever and I'm the greatest product manager ever. And like, if you stick with us, like these are the things that are going to happen. Like that's just not my personality publicly or privately. And so I think it's a bit refreshing because a lot of this space is built around this like cult of personality. And, you are like the alpha who knows everything. And if you follow this person, you'll end up in Valhalla. Like that's just not who I am. And so I think just earnestness and honestness is what I have a reputation for.
For the people who don't know you, how did your crypto journey start? How did you get here? And what was your almost your aha moment or your paradigm shift that led you to crypto that made you think, you know what, this industry has a future. I do want to take part of my career here for now.
So my crypto awareness goes way, way back. I was working at Square in Silicon Valley in 2011, and we had dashboards that were the price of Bitcoin in like 2012 or 2011, 2012. And so like the engineers of the company were actually using the company machines to mine Bitcoin. And I can like still remember this moment, like Bitcoin hit like $85 or $90. And I was like, damn, I missed it. I'm too late. Or we hit like 100. I was like, oh, 3 digits, never gonna go above that. And then Jack Dorsey like asked our team to implement Bitcoin payments for an Etsy competitor that we had called Square Marketplace. That was like my responsibility to do. And so like we're like 2013 at this point. Overstock.com had just released a Bitcoin payments product, and he was like, we have to do this. I was like, oh, this is dumb, Jack. No one is going to use this. Like Bitcoin is dumb. Like there's no reason to do this. So like he was right that Bitcoin is not dumb, and I was right that no one's going to use the product. We built it. It was really complicated because 2013, and we eventually ripped it out. I also worked consulting with Circle Financial Group. At the time, they were just an app that would allow you to buy Bitcoin with credit card in like 2013, 2014, because they were like having major issues with fraud. People were just like buying Bitcoin with, with credit card. And so I worked with them for a little bit, just like help them out. But at the time I was like, just still not involved. Just like, there's this thing, it's cryptocurrency. I keep, it keeps coming to my orbit, but I don't have a thesis. I don't think the US government is crumbling. I don't think that this is the future of the world. And, I have to protect myself against inflation because I was 23 years old and I didn't have that thesis at the time. I don't necessarily have that thesis right now either. But my aha moment came in 2021, I believe it was. A really good buddy of mine who I was working with at Better Mortgage, he was like, hey, let me show you this thing. It's like Binance staking. I was like, oh, what is it? He goes, you earn 20%. And I was like, okay. And he walked me through it. And the first crypto transaction that I did outside of just like owning Ethereum and owning Bitcoin, was like I staked Binance, a token on the Binance chain. And I was like, wow, the token keeps going up and I'm making money. Like, this is crazy. I don't understand it, but like, this is cool. He goes, you think that's cool? Let me show you this. And then the first on-chain transaction I did on an Ethereum chain was actually staking Ohm. And that was not my aha moment. It was like stopping from ETH to Ohm and then staking Ohm and then trying to ride that, while I could. But the real aha moment was I took out a loan on Maker on some Bitcoin just cause I wanted to test it out. And it was like 9 p.m. on a Friday night. And I was like showing my brother-in-law, I was like, look, this is cryptocurrency. This is, DeFi. And I took out a loan on a Friday night at like a 2 or 3% interest rate. I was like, this is incredible. And my whole background in my whole history has been in fintech, democratizing access to money, unbanking banking the unbanked, like all those memes. Like I've actually been working on it, whether it was in mortgage, in small business lending, in peer-to-peer money transfers. And I was like, oh, this actually achieves it. And then I had to send money to a friend abroad. And I sent, a USDC to my friend for like $1 or $2 in real time. And that was my aha moment. I was like, wow, these digital financial money blocks are actually really, really interesting. And these primitives have actual use cases and value that could work alongside or potentially even replace pieces of our financial system. So I was looking at it through the lens of, fintech guy, look at all these cool fintech building blocks and like what is possible from there. And that was when I was like, you know what? I think this is a future that I want to be a part of and I want to work in the industry.
Take me back. It's 2012. Jack Dorsey is talking to your team directly. What was Jack like back then? And how did the Valley get into Bitcoin? And how did they find themselves starting to mine it through their computers? Because this is over 10 years ago. How did this thing all start? And what was Jack like back then compared to now? Like now, it's obvious, very more mainstream to talk about Bitcoin and crypto. How was it like back then?
So at the time, it was extremely niche. It was not part of the culture at all. I actually looked back to see when the first instance of like the word Bitcoin was in my personal email, and it was like 2013. Wow. A friend of mine sent me an email about like Chris Dixon wrote this article. I think Coinbase was launching around the time about his thesis on Bitcoin. And like, if you look at the thread, we were like all just like responding. It's like, this is so dumb. Like all these people are going to lose all their money. Yeah. And then I pinged the thread actually like 2 or 3 years ago, when I like got into the industry professionally, and I was like, oops. And everyone's like, yeah, we really screwed that one up. So like, at the time, it was very countercultural. It wasn't mainstream. It was like very much people who actually did have this thesis of, oh, there's a fixed supply, the monetary supply is broken. Like this is the solve. I'm going to hedge against inflation. The people that I knew who were into it, they actually had that point of view. They were also mining Dogecoin, by the way. Wow. So there was a Bitcoin monitor next to a Dogecoin monitor in the office at the time.
Wow.
I have no idea what happened to those people or to the Bitcoin or the Dogecoin. As far as Jack is a very principled thinker. His thesis on Bitcoin was very much what I just described. And he was sort of in a league of his own in terms of like believing in it and thinking it was important. And as long as I've known him, that's been, how he's approached things. I'm no longer in touch with him. It's been years since I've spoken to him, but I would imagine that he's more validated and vindicated now than ever. Yeah. given that at the time the price of the token was like $100 and now it's, many tens of thousands.
It's very, very fascinating how, it progressed this far. And I believe it's still in the very infant stages as well, but it's been amazing to see the progression of Bitcoin in the overall space. You've also worked with Cash App. I'm very impressed with individuals that start off with like the startup culture, because there's a different self-starter to them. In the corporate world, you can just kind of make some phone calls, send some emails, you're done for the day. Startup culture, you know this better than I do. You have to do things every single day. There has to be a small win every single day. If there's no win every single day, even if a tiny minuscule one that compounds for the end of the week or next week, the startup simply was not going to make it. What was it like for you in the Cash App days very, very early on? And how the same or different is it to the startup days of crypto?
So I joined Square in 2011 when the company was about 100 people. And it was 2 years into my time at Square until I started working on Cash App. And so the experience that I had just working at Square generally was everyone was very entrepreneurial. Everyone was a self-starter. Everyone just like wanted to make this company work. And it was just a really fun environment. Like we were all young. We all had like no obligations of any kind. We were like working 100 hours a week. We were eating all 3 meals a day in the office. And this may sound like a miserable like wage slave sort of existence, but we actually believe that we had this mission of democratizing credit card payments. I know it sounds kind of silly, but we actually believed it. And when you believe something in your core, it motivates you to work harder, work smarter. And we also were creating something that didn't previously exist. Like no one was able to take credit card payments on their phone. It's like kind of, and now it's not a big deal. Like, we bump phones, we do all these sort of things, but you have to remember this like 13 years ago. And it was like not the norm. It wasn't commonplace. But so the culture there was, we don't know how to solve this problem. We're all like relatively smart people and we don't have a roadmap to solve these problems. Like, let's just move forward, like just forward momentum, as you mentioned, and then you see where we go. There's a lot of parallels to the crypto space. A lot of the problems haven't been solved yet. A lot of the right questions haven't been asked yet in order to solve the right problems. And so what we're seeing at Proof of Play right now is we're regularly running into new technological barriers that haven't been breached yet because no one has had the sort of problems that we've had yet. And so we get to trailblaze. No one has built an app at the scale that we're operating at. And so we have to build systems for scalability that no one else has had to build. I see a lot of parallels to what it was like early in the Square days. Like, how do you onboard someone in under 5 minutes? Like that was the criteria. Get someone on board in under 5 minutes and let them transact immediately, get paid out the same day or the next day without losing your shirt on risk and fraud. In the early days, Square looked like a payments company, but really was a risk and fraud company. And it was like, how do you reduce friction on onboarding and at the same time, like enable as many people to join as possible? So we were just trying to solve these problems. And I see a lot of parallels to what we're trying to do right now. As far as the early days of Cash App, Jack, sort of like a Willy Wonka character, said, I want to be able to send money via email. And so the original version of the product was called Square Cash. You would type in an email address, the person you wanted to send to, and then you'd CC cash@square.com. And then you'd put in the subject line the amount of money you'd want to send. And then just like sort of magically send the money. It was this crazy system. We were sort of like hacking, Visa and MasterCard's payment rails. Like we were using a credit type that they didn't really necessarily appreciate. Like we were using this product called like an unlinked refund, which is like if you go to a department store and you have your credit card, they can put money back onto the card even if you don't have the card with you. So we found like a workaround, and it was very like much like hacker culture. They were like, hey, you can't do this anymore. We're like, okay, this is what we are trying to accomplish. We want to do a real-time payment using this mechanism there. And we worked with them to build something out custom. But it was just like, there was no way to do this. How do we do it? We found a workaround, read through like the Visa docs, and we're like, okay, there's this payment type that we can do. And it was just fun. It was, we were just trying to build something that was initially competitive with Venmo until we realized that it was pretty much impossible to compete with Venmo because the network effects were too strong. Even to this day, I contend that Cash App is a significantly better product than Venmo, like across almost any vertical. However, almost none of my friends use Cash App because they were on Venmo first. And even then when I was like, hey, I'm on this team, we're building this cool product, use this thing, it's great. I couldn't get them to use it. Like, why would I use it? I have Venmo. Venmo works great. And like, do you use Cash App or use Venmo?
I'm in Toronto, neither.
Okay, neither. All right, never mind.
Yeah.
Then.
I don't think we even have access here. Yeah.
Okay,
Canada.
good. We don't want any of those Canadians on our payment rails.
I can't blame you. A lot of them are terrible. I can't blame you.
But so if you were like in New York or San Francisco or LA, like these like coastal elite cities that we were targeting initially, because that's where we were, like we were coastal elites in San Francisco, we couldn't get anyone to use our product. And we were just flailing for a long time until there was this aha moment of like, let's actually go after a user base that doesn't have Venmo installed. Like maybe instead of stealing customers from Venmo, we should create new customers. And it sounds like a very stupid and simple insight, but that was when like the growth started to get unlocked.
You guys were trying to solve a problem that the rest of the world didn't know existed and probably didn't care about. So how were you guys winning in the early days, solving a problem the world didn't care about? And how did you know you were on track for this? Because there is, to my knowledge at that point, there would have been no like, okay, this is what success looks like, aside from the fact that, adoption was taking place, and you referenced that your friends didn't really care. So how did you guys know you were on the right track? Because I see the exact same thing here with crypto and the current stage of what we're in.
There was like many years of failures, and the product was just this close to getting shut down multiple times because it was losing a ton of money for the company. Jack had a maniacal focus on knowing that this was going to work if it just continued to get funded. And there was like a mandate that was slapped down. It was like, if this thing doesn't make any money in like X period of time, it's like closed for good. And there was this one insight, I don't remember who pushed it forward, but we basically started charging 1% for a instant deposit. So if you want to get your money like that, like in one, you go to the ATM, you can pull it out and that charge like 1% fee. And that took the product from being unprofitable to highly profitable, like overnight, and saved the product. And, everything that happened after is sort of history. And it was a long-term thesis in like the product, the idea, the space, and just working through the pain. It doesn't always work, right? There are points where you can try 1,000 things and it won't work. So it's about having conviction in the right idea, not just conviction for conviction's sake. So there has to be something behind it. Like there was that story, Slack almost failed and then they pivoted to becoming, what we know and love for Slack today. Angry Birds, major IP. I think they went through 50 games before they came up with Angry Birds. And so Angry Birds was like their 51st attempt. But had they given up, like after the first 50, obviously there was many more stories of, people trying 100 things and them all failing. So I don't know if, never give up is like necessarily the best advice. But if you have conviction, you have the right team, you have the right funding, generally speaking, I think things will work out. Amit, our CEO, the thing that he says to everyone at the company when they join and just in general is that the only reason we'll fail is if we give up. We have the right people, we have the right idea, we have the right funding, and maybe we won't get the thing right the first time. But, I feel extremely confident that if we just keep going, we're going to win. And I feel that in my bones as well.
Back then, there was obviously the finding early of the, PMF, product market fit. There was also the cold start problem, and many of which in today's society with crypto still exists. It's the exact same principles, maybe similar overlap in the industry. And you guys obviously found that early on, which obviously the company did very well and is still doing very well to this day because of that finding early product market fit and solving that cold start problem, getting users effectively. When thinking back to your startup days and thinking to your days now, working with the team you're working with, we can dive into that a little bit later. What are some similarities and differences between the culture of startup then and now? And
I think startups then and now are quite similar. The way that I hustle at work today is the same way that I was hustling a decade ago. The way that, the can-do problem solving attitude of the types of people who join the company at this stage. Like you don't get, people don't join a 15-person, 20-person company like if they have like all of their marbles.
Yeah.
It takes a very certain type of person, certain type of risk profile, stage in life, or comfort, or self confidence. Like, you're not going to get someone who's been a FANG engineer for 20 years to come join a startup necessarily, right? I try not to make like sweeping generalizations, but
Yeah.
most of the time, like once you hit a certain stage, like you want to maintain. I have, for whatever reason in my career, just consistently stayed at relatively early stage startups. And this is actually the earliest stage that I've ever joined. I ended up joining the founding team when the company was only 5 people. And like, a month or so after fundraising. So this was like, generally the older you get, the less risk you want to take. And somehow, now that I have a couple of kids, I decided to take my biggest risk yet. So I don't know what that says about me. But the industry, I think, is a little bit easier to operate now. The tooling has gotten significantly better. And that doesn't impact me as a product person, but it doesn't mean that my engineers can move faster because they can use off the shelf services that didn't exist in 2011, 2012, 2013. And so what might have taken, let's say, 2 weeks to spin up like some sort of backend service, now you can maybe do in one click. And, we were building everything in Ruby on Rails, and now we have React, and we have different frameworks and different engineering tools that just allow teams to move faster. We also have ChatGPT and Claude now, and Copilot.
Yes.
And so I've seen and observed that our team comment offhand that they're able to just be significantly more efficient as engineers. And so, we only have a team of, let's say, 12 or 13 engineers, but equivalently, because of Copilot and the other tooling that's out there, we're probably closer to double that, I would say.
The product development, to your point, is probably easier. I don't know if it's easier. I'll say it's more efficient now. You could probably take longer strides and better sprints, more efficient sprints now than maybe 15 years ago. I do think that the attention game has severely changed now than it did so many years ago, only because people now think they have the best invention the world's ever seen until they realize it's not the best invention that the world's ever seen, based off the fact that getting attention nowadays is very difficult. You might have a great product, but you might lack in marketing. You might lack in having a CEO or founder or team member. That is the evangelist. You might lack in these types of areas. How do you guys today at Pirate Nation really deal with the lack, I guess, the really saturated market that we're in today? And how do you guys overcome it?
So I've worked historically at very product-oriented companies. And so, I see a hammer or I see a nail and I'm like, I have a hammer. So like, build a great product and build something that people want, the Paul Graham, like YC, like build something that people want and build something good and build something sticky. There is a really interesting new framework that's how you think about if your product is good or not, which is if this thing were to stop to exist tomorrow, like how disappointed would you be? Right. So there's like the net promoter score, which is like, would you recommend this to a friend? It's like, I think it's pretty good. I think this new framework of if this product were to go away, how disappointed would you be? That's how we want to index what we're building. And so there's like, fast forward, our game was down for 3 days. There was a major outage at our chain provider, and it was like a major problem. And during that period, people were sad. They were like going through withdrawal. They were like, I need this back. Like I didn't realize how much I missed it until it was gone. And I was like, oh, we built something not only that people want, that people would be disappointed if it went away. I know we're on the right track. So how do you sort of make it through the noise? I don't want to disparage like my peers in the space, but there's not that many great like products in this whole ecosystem. A lot of things are like slapped together. They're not very thoughtful. They're not professional. They don't have longevity in mind. And that's because their goals are not aligned with the goals that we have. Like, our goals are to build a forever game. Whether or not that's possible, I can't say, but that's what we're trying to build. I don't know if that's true of many of our peers. Like, that's why we chose to build a fully on-chain game. We want to build a game that can outlast us, outlast our company, and just exist forever in this time capsule that is Ethereum.
From a product standpoint, is it important to you to outcompete, outlast the games of products in just our industry? And is it as equally important to outlast, outcompete, outsurvive pretty much entrepreneurship? And I think business is not even about who wins the most. It's pretty much, to me, in my opinion at least, a game of outlasting. right? The person who outlasts for the longest period of time will probably definitively win despite being an infinite game. Do you guys plan on outlasting overall games in the Web 2 side of things like GTA, COD, any other first-person shooters?
I don't think, I think it's important to think about what our comps are. And I wouldn't say that we're be competing for attention for someone who's playing GTA or Fortnite necessarily. And we're building a very specific type of game. That is another very specific type of game. And they may or may not have the same overlapping player base. Or yeah, our goal is to build a game that outlasts everyone because it's in this like Ethereum time capsule. And like the data lives there and people can build their own clients on top of it. That's independent of the client that we've built. And if we only succeed in Web3 in this like crypto sphere, our company will, even if we wildly succeed relative to our Web3 peers, I would say that our company will be considered a failure because our goal is to build a mass market casual game that's using this Web3 and blockchain based technology. And so the goal isn't to be a crypto company. It's to build a game using this crypto technology and show people from whether they're degens or your mom or your cousin or like your casual crypto investor, like that there are games that can be built using this technology. There are interesting use cases for it. And then you can build new and interesting game designs that are uniquely suited to this type of tech. And so that's our goal. And so it isn't, right now, we are very focused on the technology side of it. And obviously the game design is important as well, but we are not focused on Web 2 customer acquisition. We're not competing with our Web 2 peers right now. We will eventually, once we have everything battle hardened and we have the scaling technology in place and we feel like we have a strong enough mousetrap. I think the Web 2 game audience is a little bit more discerning than Web 3 because Web 3 have different incentives and motives. And so if we were to bring our game to market right now, certainly we would attract some attention, but not as much as we would want. Like, I think our game is good. We've said this publicly many times. Our game is good, but it's not great. And we know how to make it great. And we're not willing to show our game off until to this like more discerning audience until it is great. And so we have a lot more work to do.
I respect the good to great. And I've said this, and I think you'd probably agree with this too. The percentage of which it takes to go from decent to good is 10 times smaller than what it takes to go from good to great. And on the topic of outlasting, outcompeting, we say this so often, and I don't think that retail is here right now based off of the data and the charts that I've seen from exchange perspective. And I could be completely wrong, and that's totally fine. From what I've seen in the sample sizes that I've taken, and you might even seen a couple tweets too, I don't think they're directly here. I don't think they're here for two reasons. I think one, the price action hasn't happened enough yet. And I don't think we've had a blowout product since. Like, we can argue BAYC from the NFT side was a blowout product because every person we knew that was impacting culture in the United States was talking about it. We haven't had that since. And the price action of Bitcoin hit all-time high 3 months ago. Fine, but it hasn't consistently gone green. And until that point, I think retail might lag behind. And with that being said, how much of the game, of the product, of the team do you think it'll take you guys to actually outlast until retail is here? Because people say, yeah, retail is coming in, we're going to go find them, meet people where they are. I get all that stuff. But realistically, how long do you think it takes for these teams to outlast, meaning, pay your staff, be accountable, create a product that's working until everything actually aligns? And my fear is this, and I'll let you answer. A lot of those teams are waiting for that day to happen, but because that day is further away than it is close, in my opinion, a lot of teams will get slaughtered in the meantime. And this is just the way business and capitalism works. But how do you guys prepare for that day, knowing that that day could be further than closer away?
So we're not waiting for retail to come to us. I think if you're of the mindset of like build it and they will come, they're not going to come. You have to go and find them where they are. So we're going to eventually have a mobile app that's meeting them where they are. We're going to have a YouTube channel. We'll probably have a TikTok channel. We'll have creators. We'll buy Google and Facebook ads. We'll do a lot of the things that, the types of games that we're emulating are going to be doing. And we just have to be really good at them and have a really sticky game that people are going to want to stick around for. So we're not going to just like sit here and be like, okay, when are they coming? Is it now? Like, is Bitcoin going up? We don't, our game, let me take a step back. If our company is dependent on the price of like the crypto asset ecosystem, we can't win because it's a very volatile space. Even as it's become more and more mainstream and accepted, it's always going to be like this thing over here. Like my thesis is not, it's not going to become as prevalent as the stock market or bonds or like mainstream finance. Maybe Bitcoin has the best chance or Ethereum, but all these like altcoins and they're just going to be this thing over here. And so we can't be subject to the whims of a very volatile space. We need to just build a game and a product that people want to play, whether the price of Bitcoin is 100,000 or zero. We are insulated right now from the prices of, like, we've been building this thing for 2.5 years. There's been bull markets and bear markets and like mini bulls and mini bears throughout. And we've steadily acquired more players. We've built the game, made it better. Your mom doesn't care what the price of Bitcoin is when she's clicking in her, on her iPhone app. And so that's what we're trying to build. As far as like lasting, we have to have a sustainable business model. We make money today as a company. If we need to raise more money in the future, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we just need to build a business in which we bring in more money than it costs us to run the business. Sounds very stupid, but thankfully we've designed the company and the game in a way that we have sinks and faucets that are going to make and compel people to spend, to play the game. And like, that's our revenue model.
I've been very blunt about this in the past, and I've asked, people who've been on the show as well, because I'm curious to kind of, goes in their mind as to why join the team, why bet on themselves. And I'll turn this to you and I'll ask you, why would anybody outside looking in bet on you, the product, the brand? Why would people bet on Pirate Nation?
So I think it's wider than Pirate Nation. So Pirate Nation is our app that is the dog food experiment for proof of play. Like, the bet that I made was on proof of play, that we can build a set of technologies and a platform that will enable other game builders to build fully on-chain games. And the thesis is eventually it will be easier to build on-chain games than off-chain games, right? That's like the thesis of the company. And we're building the tool set to be able to do that. Because, if you have an on-chain game, you have the server set, you have like a community set, you have incentive design built in. There's all these things that are beneficial to build in the space. Why I ended up joining. So again, I joined as the first employee on the founding team, and I met just the team. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to bet on a bunch of people, like, it's going to be these people. It was, guy who created Farmville, sold 3 companies, person who did the art for Farmville, guy who created, Command and Conquer, was at EA in the early 90s, worked on some of the biggest titles. And I was like, yeah, this is a pretty elite team. I can see myself, building something amazing alongside the team. Ultimately, when you are in the pre-idea stage, pre-product market fit, pre-product stage, you're just betting on people, right? Like, it's possible that Pirate Nation will fail, but I don't believe that our team is set up to fail just because of how it feels on a day-to-day basis. Like, there's like a magic in the air that's kind of hard to explain. And so, will Pirate Nation be a mass market casual game? I hope so. I think we're on a really strong, solid path, but it's entirely possible to flame and burn. And I know that we'll have another shot on deck, and we'll have the right team to be able to put that shot on goal. Speaking to the Canadian guy, like, we're putting together. I believe that we have the right group of people to put as many shots on goal as possible until we score. And so for me, it's just about the people.
The team obviously has skill set and a lot of depth in this type of world before Farmville, EA as well. All very proven products, proven teams, proven people. Do you think that with knowing this, and then obviously, retail consumers, community members know that as well, do you think that is where proof of play / Pirate Nation's true competitive advantage lies, is in the people and the depth of what they've done? Because most of the space, to my knowledge, is the first time operating. And there's nothing wrong with first time operators. Everybody has their first. But do you think you guys have a leg up just based off of knowing what PMF looks like, knowing when you found something, knowing how to run a game, knowing how to make money for a game, which is massive in the industry, knowing how to do this, that, the third? You guys think you have a next leg up already, just based off of team personnel skill set?
I think that is our number one, number two, number three, like core competitive advantage. For a while, I don't know exactly what the numbers are right now. More than half of the team were former founders, former CEOs. I think half of our engineering team right now is former CTOs, and we index towards hiring seniors exclusively. We've only made 1 or 2 junior hires in the whole entire company, and it was because we saw like a lot of promise in them. But yeah, we're all like, very experienced, multiple exits under our belt, all like very level-headed adults. This is, I feel like I'm channeling JD Vance here for a second. Like, most of us are parents, like we're not, like 19-year-old Gen Z traders. We've just been around the block a lot. And so that means that if there's a crisis that, we're facing, we approach it very level-headed. We don't like run around. We don't panic. Generally speaking, we've seen worse in the past. Although I think the chain going down was probably the worst crisis I've been a part of at a company, like where the app's just off for 3 days. So that's probably the worst. But I've seen some other pretty bad stuff. And we were just like, oh yeah, here we go again. And then we work really well together to just triage problems and move forward. So the team is just like the most elite that I've ever worked on.
It's ignorance debt, find problem, solve problem. Again, it's almost that continuously. And just because you've been a part of, let's say, $1 billion team or a $10 billion team, the problems there, I would assume, are very similar in some instance to what smaller teams experience, just on a much higher level, in my opinion. And I want to dive into the actual Pirate Nation app with what you guys are building within the app itself. What do you think is the most useful utility for people to use the app? And before we dive into the question, a lot of people throw this word, utility around, as you probably already know. And I think less people are fascinated now because of that term being so saturated with utility, and they're more focused on solution. So you're almost kind of solution selling opposed to, here's the utility. I think let's just axe that. Let's chop its feet off, and let's mention your solution. What solution does the Pirate Nation app have, and people using it, what benefactors does it give to them?
Our plan is just to entertain you. It's not to like employ you or to give you a job. Like, we're not building a play to earn, Ponzi scheme. We're just building a game that's fun. And if you derive like enjoyment from playing it, if it challenges you, if whatever parts of it that you enjoy, there's a number of different ways to engage with the game. Like, some people play the economy side. Some people like the monsters. Some people like sailing around. Some people like the trading. Whatever type of player you are, we want to meet you where you are, and we want to bring you enjoyment. And so if you're not entertained, you're not having fun, you're not just escaping your day for 20 minutes playing this game, then like we're not doing our job. Like, the utility is fun, like any other game that you play. Like, you don't like open up Fortnite and be like, what is the utility of Fortnite? You're like, I want to escape and play. And that's exactly what we're trying to bring. And if you're not having a fun time, then we need to get back to work.
If the product is good, and we can dive into some of your numbers as well, the word community, that's overused once again, will take place, will be formed. In your opinion, and this is obviously your opinion, there is no right or wrong answer until a decade later from now. How does the word community evolve, and how does it transform to what it is today, to what you think it could be in a decade from now?
I'll first say I feel extremely lucky that I believe we have the best community in crypto. I think, probably Melody or Milady, however you say it, they probably the best one, because like, no matter what happens, like they're having a good time. So I'm going to say that we're the second best community, because, they've been through so much. We have people who've been playing the game literally every single day without missing a day for 2 years. There's very few other communities that I think can say that. And they've been constructive and helpful from day zero all the way to today. Things are not taking long, like things are taking too long, or they want to see a thing that's not in the game. Like they're like always understanding. They're working on our behalf. They're parroting our talking points without us asking them to. Like they really are ingrained in the culture that we wanted to create. They're tough, but friendly and, sharp. Like we've somehow collected like a very large collection of dads. Actually, it's
Nice.
kind of like, I don't know how we did it, but like our demographic skews a little bit older than average crypto. Like we don't have like these G moon boy trader types. I'm sure they're there. Like we have tens of thousands of daily actives. And so of course, but the core community, the people who like engage on a daily basis, they're older, more mature, have like experience, have seen things before. And so if something doesn't go like perfectly, they're like, okay, well, I understand that they were like going for a grand slam and, just like didn't quite work out. Right. And like, actually, this is a blessing in disguise. And here's, how it could work. So I feel really, really lucky that we have the community that we have. They've just been with us for a long time, and the people they've snowballed and brought into the fold have been very additive because they're bringing other like-minded people. So like that seed of the group, the seed of people, I don't know how we found them. I'm like being perfectly honest. If you were to say start a Pirate Nation style community again, like in an anon way, like where I couldn't use my name to be like, hey, come along with me, I would have no idea how we did it. But we somehow got like these like earnest, intelligent, thoughtful, like understanding, forgiving people. Like when we post announcements, like we fuck up, which happens. We never get like the clown emojis, which is sort of like shocking. And I know that's like a stupid barometer, like no clown emojis, but I think it's very telling around how understanding and like the nature of the community. They're not vindictive. They have demands of us, but we've delivered over and over again for 90 plus releases over the past 2.5 years, that they know that even if we're not delivering today, it's going to happen tomorrow. It's not tomorrow, it's the day after, because we've built up this trust over time, and we have a really large trust bank with them. So we can like screw up a bunch of times and be like, oh yeah, well, it's okay. Like we'll give them this one, we'll give them that one. Like we have a lot of trust built up, and it's mutual, right? They ask for stuff, and we tell them like very openly, it's like, that's unreasonable. We are never going to build that. Or we're like, hey, that's actually a great idea, and we want to do that, but we have these 8 things that are much more important, and here's why. And we're not going to do that thing, which we agree is a great idea, for like probably a year. And they're like, you know what? I do agree that those 8 things are better. And it's like hard to have that conversation typically, because a lot of the people in the space are like, I want it now. Like they're Veruca Salt. I want it now, daddy. And if you don't give it to me, like I'm just going to start screaming. And like, that's not the group of people that we have.
You mentioned that you don't know transparently how this happened, and I assume it didn't happen overnight. I'm gonna assume I'm right on that one too. If you were to take a stab at it, take a guess at this, do you think it was the overall personnel type of the brand? Was it the messaging of the brand? Is it the way that the game operates? Because people say all the time, yeah, build community, build community. That is the very theoretical answer to say. And that's something we can all easily say yes, okay? But how do we operationalize that 3 words, build a community? How do we get this done? And what factors, obviously, in your opinion, once again, do you think contribute to building a community? Not even just personalized to your guys' game product, what you guys are doing, but just on a let's say worldwide scale.
What we did was, I think, intentionally very different from many of the other companies in the space. So we had our NFTs and the art done in February of 2022. I think that's right. We didn't launch the NFT mint until November of 2022, because our goal was to launch the NFT mint within a week of the game going live, because we wanted to be like, here's your NFT and there's a free mint. That was another thing we did that was different, right? We didn't charge. We said, here's this NFT. And now here's something to do with it. A lot of the times teams were using NFTs to like raise money from the community. And then they would go off and like either build a game or in most cases not build a game. And so we wanted to just show them that we were different. It's like, hey, we're going to do this thing and then you're going to have utility with it immediately, which is like go and have fun. And also we showed them we're going to listen to you. You tell us what's not working. You tell us what's working. And the early days, even now, we worked on very fast development cycles. Like we shipped every single week, at least one time. And so someone's like, oh, this is buggy. We fixed it. Oh, I have this idea. Change this copy. We fixed it. And we showed them that it's like this was a beta product and we want to engage with them. We created a positive feedback loop where they said, hey, check this out. And we said, we think we are hearing you want this, but really we know you want this other thing. And like we built this other thing. They're like, oh my God, like this is so good. And we kept doing that for years and building that up, like that trust bank that I talked about. You can't create that overnight. It requires you to actually deliver. We're very deliberately under promising and over delivering across the board. We never say we're going to release something unless we're extremely confident it's going to happen. We don't talk about the future unless we're doing a town hall and we want to like sort of move the curtain aside a little bit. We don't promise the moon to anyone. We never talk about financialization. We don't make promises that we know we can't keep. And we're very humble in how we interact with our community. If there's like some, drama or there's some issues, like we personally step in, like, hey, this behavior is unacceptable. If you want to have a debate or you want to like flame each other out, like that's fine, but like do it respectfully. And like when people try to FUD the game or me or whatever it is, I'm very deliberate about, not moving down into the mud and be like, okay, like you think this feature is shit. Tell me why. Like, how would you like to see? So instead of being like, be like, you don't know anything, like internet schmuck, like let's see you build a fun game, which is, first of all, not the right way to approach your customers anyway, but how a lot of teams interact with their community. I was like, okay, what do you think it is? Like, what problem are you trying to solve? Like, what do you think is like the core issue here? And after years of engaging with people this way in public, the community engages with each other this way. And when someone's giving negative feedback, it's like, hey, change your tone and also like be constructive and like, what would you do? And so what we get from that is like really like interesting and helpful discussions for us as a game dev team, because what it means is we're able to like draft off of and hear into our players' heads, which allows us to build something better. And we build something better, they know it's got better, they have more fun. It's just this virtuous loop.
It becomes this learned behavior. It starts top down. In my opinion, it becomes this learned behavior to where if you have kids, and you obviously have kids, and your son, your daughter sees you do X, Y, Z thing enough times, and they're at an age of where they're probably going to mimic you. They'll probably mimic you within the first week or first 2 weeks, and it becomes this ever-growing cycle of what's the old saying, Adam? It's monkey see, monkey do, right? That's inevitably what it becomes, and that is true for good behavior as well as bad behavior through positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. And despite what some teams may want to admit, I do think that negative reinforcement can be more positive than positive reinforcement sometimes. Obviously, context very nuanced as well. Context matters everywhere. That's a ton of that, but that's my personal take. You guys are going multi-chain. And what's the very cringe thing that the world says? It's what do they say? The future is multi-chain. I think we said it enough times. I do agree with that as well, despite the terming overused and being cringe.
So it isn't like we're going to be on Avalanche and Ethereum. It's going to be like we have our own chain already called Proof of Play Apex, and we're launching Proof of Play Boss. And those chains are going to be able to interact with each other. It's like invisible sharding, like Worlds of Warcraft, but they're not going to be. So it's invisible to the player. But it isn't Adam, like different chains.
Why this approach?
Okay, we don't have a choice. So
I like that.
I mean, we don't want to do this. It's really complicated. No one's done it yet, as far as I know, because no one has hit this level of usage. So if you look at this website called rollup.wtf, it's hosted by Conduit. It shows the level of MGAS or megagas. Megagas is the amount of compute that you put onto a chain. We're currently doing between 30 and 40 MGAS per second. We are currently doing more than every single other EVM chain combined times, I don't know what it is right now, but times some factor. So you take Ethereum, Base, Blast, like every other one, you add them together. We at Proof of Play Apex, our single chain with a single app, is doing more compute. We have found the upper bound limit of the blockchain. I don't think anyone else has found this upper bound limit yet because no one has put this many transactions on the chain, has put this much compute. Because you can spam transactions, but it's about how complicated the transactions are and how much gas is associated with them. So there are chains that are at times doing more transaction volume per second than us, but those transactions are like empty relative to you're going on a quest, you're going on a craft, you're doing a bounty, which is what our chain. So we simply cannot vertically scale anymore. We found the number of players that you can fit with our game type, with our game style, with our level of MGAS. And so in order to get more players into the game, because, tens of thousands of DAUs is like not the bar for us. We're trying to get to millions. We needed to invent a new set of technologies. And so multi-chain here is we're going to launch our second chain. So if you think about like a World of Warcraft is a great example that we like to use. So you can be in like realm 1 or realm 2. If you're in realm 1, you never interact with realm 2. And the reason there are different realms is because each one of those servers has a maximum capacity. Yeah. The maximum capacity on those servers is significantly higher than that of a blockchain, but nonetheless, like there is a vertical limit. So we found the vertical limit on Proof of Play Apex. We want more players, so we have to launch a second chain. The innovation here and what we're going to be building that is very exciting is, unlike in World of Warcraft, where realm 1 and realm 2 will never interact with each other, people on Apex and Boss will be living in the same ecosystem. They'll be transacting with each other. They'll be playing each other. They'll be trading with each other. All their activities will be able to be performed in the same world, in the same ecosystem, without realizing they're on different chains. And so when we talk about multi-chain, it's multi-chains all hosted by Proof of Play that are all going to enable us to scale. And there are some changes coming up later in the year that are going to enable further horizontal or vertical scaling. So let's say we found the limit is like 35 MGAS right now. Later in the year, there's going to be some changes to node infrastructure that are going to allow us to get to 50 or 60 or 70. And so we'll be able to fit more headroom per chain, and which means we'll have to do fewer horizontal chains. But the cool thing about this space and what we're building is that the technology and the infrastructure is constantly changing. When I say constantly, I don't mean like years out. Like every few months, there's a major innovation that unlocks something that we need to be able to do. And either we're leading the charge on the innovation, or there's some infrastructure provider that's building it that we are able to draft off of. And so we see a big upgrade coming later in the year that we're going to benefit from. We're excited about that. But until that happens, we need to scale both vertically and horizontally. And so that's what multi-chain means for us. And that's coming up imminently.
I'm glad you cut me off and you corrected me there. A lot of teams are having sometimes issues with the chain. Do you guys feel like your version of multi-chain, which is, I think the first time I'm hearing this, the way that you said it, so thank you for that, is built to handle quote unquote mass adoption?
Each chain can handle as much adoption as it's able to handle until we need to add another chain.
Okay.
So we will scale our chains as our player base grows. So going from before we were on Polygon, and then Polygon wasn't working out great for us. We moved to Nova, but we had a problem on Nova, which was noisy neighbor. And so our transaction costs went from $3,000 a day to like $20,000 a day.
Wow.
Because there was some like AI coin that was minting, and we were paying for all the transactions. So like it was costing us a lot of money. It wasn't costing, the people who were mining this AI coin. And then we knew we were going to have to build our own chain. We just didn't know when. So that was like, okay, $20,000 a day, emergency, build our own chain. So then we went to our own chain. So going from 0 to 1 chains for us was like a difficult thing to do. Now we're going from 1 to 2 chains, going from 2 to N chains. According to my engineers, like if they hear this and they like yell at me after, I'm sorry, this is what you told me. 2 to many chains is going to be easier than 0 to 1 and 1 to 2. So if we like grow 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, we'll be adding new chains, so we'll have the C chain and the D chain and the E chain, the F chain as we grow.
I just created a mental diagram in my head when you just use all those numbers and letters. I think I understand.
Each chain has a limit. We hit the limit on chain 1, so we have to go to chain 2 if we want more players. Okay. We have a really long waiting list right now to play.
That's crazy.
So we have it's there's like it takes like an hour to get off the queue today if you have a
Wow.
Gen 1 pirate. So we have enough players waiting at any given point in time that as soon as
For
we
now.
launch Chain 2, we will probably have some wait time, but it won't be an hour and a half. It was an hour and a half this morning. So I think when we launch Chain 2, hopefully we'll get it down to like under 10 minutes or maybe even 0. But if we open up signups again, right? Signups are off right now. Like if any of your listeners want to, play and they don't have a Gen 0 or Founders Pirate, they literally are not able to play because we're not minting new Gen 1 pirates, which is a free-to-play pirate. So we are now completely in control of our growth again. We let it get a little bit out of hand, which is why you see the wait times now. Like we just let too many people in, and we didn't realize with the upper
It's the right problem to have, though. Having the wait time is not fantastic. I mean, I played many games too. The wait's kind of long. I'm like, I'm gonna wait here still, but the wait time it's a problem, but it's the problem you actually do want to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those like champagne problems, but it also kind of sucks. Like we don't want this problem. It's a bad experience for our players. Like we can brag like so many people want to play. We have a wait. It's like, but that's not what we're about. We want just people to be in the game and not waiting in line because waiting in line sucks. So it's something that we're intensely focused on solving. And there's multi-chain. There's some rule changes that we did. We've done a number of things to bring the lines down. The lines were at 4, 5, 6 hours at one point in time. And we've brought them down significantly, but until they're at 0, it's not a W.
Good for you guys though for having progress for that. 5 to 6 hours is definitely crazy. 1 hour is not too bad. I've waited in line. I've waited on telecommunications for the bank or something on a weekend for an hour, so it's not bad. But good for you guys for addressing the issue up front and obviously minimizing the wait time. It's fantastic. I have one more question that I do want to ask you, what you're excited about for the rest of the year 2024. And you guys, to my knowledge, don't really, and I might be, ignorant in saying this because I genuinely don't know. I don't think you guys operate with too many KOLs, which is good. I was having a conversation with my friend yesterday, and obviously he's in crypto, about KOLs versus, the brand itself, the core team having its own, flag carrier evangelist. I think that every core team of, C-suite, one of the executives, in my opinion, has to be the flag carrier, has to be the evangelists. And obviously, as the creator economy scales, having more than one is fantastic, but having one is minimum. A lot of the KOLs today are the forefront of the brand. And it bugs me personally speaking because the brand doesn't have a standalone brand. The brand is only lending itself from, or the KOL is lending itself to, which means the brand is intaking the brand from that KOL. And if that person were to leave, they're on a standalone. And I don't think I think it's a short-term fix. I don't think it solves a long-term problem of creating a brand. If your brand is only known from the people that are pushing the product and they're not in the founding team, I think it's a bit of a problem. And this is just one man's opinion. I'm open to feedback, open to being wrong on this, but I want to know what your take on that is.
Yeah, no notes. I completely agree. We don't work with a ton of KOLs. We have a couple of people in our ecosystem that we work with, and they're very much brand aligned with them. They're gamers. They get what we're trying to build. We love using them for guidance and for feedback. And the KOLs that we do work with, I don't think they would even identify as KOLs, and we enjoy working with them, and we would enjoy working with them whether or not they tweeted about us, because we're like, hey, we have this idea. You're a gamer, you're in the space. Like, how do you think it'll be received? And we love like that give and take.
Awesome.
We haven't historically worked with the KOLs for like many of the reasons that you described, and frankly, the conversations that I've had with some of the names that you probably know and see in your timeline have been like pretty icky. And that's just like not, we operate like pretty above board as a business, and we try to just make long-term oriented decisions. And one of our core principles as a business is like industry leading integrity. And so it's really important like that if we do get into bed with somebody, that we feel really comfortable that like they're going to be a good brand ambassador for us, and they're doing it for the right reasons, not because we're like, hey, here's $5,000 to tweet. Like anytime we were approached by like, again, some, large name people, it just like didn't feel right. Vibes are really important when we work with people, even if like it might be beneficial to business work with them. If the feel of the relationship doesn't doesn't seem right, we've walked away many times in the past. So
you guys are absolute pros. Obviously, you guys are absolute pros. And I appreciate, per se, speaking to you. And obviously, you're echoing on behalf of the team, things you guys have done. It's all very great stuff operating above board, and obviously making decisions that not just, impact 2 months, but impact, 30 years or 10 years. What are you excited for within your product, your brand, your future in the next, let's say, 6 months, the rest of the year?
So we've been working on infrastructure updates for the past 2 months or so. And as a product guy, I appreciate and I understand the value of infrastructure, but it's like not fun for me because like I'm just kind of hanging around like, what do I do now? And so I'm excited to get back to being able to build cool stuff again and have like the engineering resources to build, fun products that are going to bring joy to our players and to our customers. And so we have a lot of gameplay updates planned that are just like sitting on the back burner waiting for people to focus on. And I'm really, really excited to deliver a lot of the things that we've been promising and talking about in the community that we have on the roadmap. And so there's not one specific thing. There's one thing. I'm excited for the world bosses. That's the thing I'm pumped about. When the world boss was like the peak of our early days of the company. We haven't done it for over a year. Everyone was fighting against the three monsters. It was just extremely fun, very social, collaborative. We have a much better version of world bosses coming up. Everything we learned from the first event, how we can make it better. The community is, 50x larger now. I think it's going to be a huge smash, and I'm very, very much looking forward to participating as a player and also observing it as a game builder.
Awesome stuff. Adam Fern from Pirate Nation, Proof of Play. Adam, I appreciate you jumping on. Hopefully the rest of the listeners, viewers enjoyed this one. I know I did. Thank you, everybody.